I am going to do a Wellness Wednesday as a live today. I didn't make the time this past week to film a Wellness Wednesday, and so I decided I would just do a simple little live stream here. And I didn't really have a whole lot to talk about other than the fact that I have been diligently collecting the data that I discussed the last time I did a Wellness Wednesday, where I was actually sitting in this room and it was a filmed video instead of a live. And I'm pretty sure I was wearing this exact same shirt. So, it's consistent apparently. In my last Wellness Wednesday, I kind of just blathered on a live stream, but the one previous to that, I discussed checking my numbers and taking my blood ketones, taking my blood glucose, and just really trying to acquire information. Hello, Sylvia. I'm glad you can make it today. I'm just going to do a real simple discussion today about collecting data. And so I discussed, sort of like where I was with wanting the information that Dr. Boz recommends that we collect so we can make better choices versus wanting to live a more Dr. Berry proper human diet way of life where we're not really hyper focused on numbers, but just eating what we need to be eating. And it's just one of those things where actually I need to take these off. I'm going to break them. One of those things where I'm just kind of trying to just gather information at this point. I have been on a health and wellness quest since about 2011, 2012. And I have gone through many iterations of different ways of eating. I did a method that followed a Weston A. Price ideology where I followed nourishing traditions, slow food, going through and fermenting all your foods and breaking down all the phytates and trying to eliminate anti-nutrients while adding in all the good nutrients. I've done that for a while. I went through and did Trim Healthy Mama for quite some time. And I also did, well, it wasn't really that long, I suppose. I started using some of the THM drink recipes and things when I was still in my fermenting phase of life. And then I went whole hog on Trim Healthy Mama, quickly transferred over to a ketogenic friendly way of eating because I just felt better on that. And so I've been doing this for some time. And there have been many seasons in my past, what did I say? It was about 2011, 2012. So over the past decade plus, there have been many different periods of time where my brain is hyper focused on, okay, I know these things are real factors. How can I harness the power of that knowledge to apply it and then execute? And then, so I go in cycles of doing that very intentionally. And then I sort of slide over to the side of the spectrum that's like, we're in kind of a weird stage of life right now. Like somebody is getting married, or we're traveling a lot, or, adding a baby to the family, or all of those things. Like, there's just waves of change in our family all the time. I mean, we haven't had a baby in almost 5 years, but the art of learning how to manage life with multiple children while homeschooling, with a husband who travels for a job, with us who travel often to go see family, with, everybody has their things, right? Everybody has those ebbs and flows of hyperdiligence with all of the knowledge being applied for their health versus those seasons where they're a little bit more tapped out, or just at their capacity for their ability to focus on things that are actually like time sensitive, I guess is the way I might say that. So, it's kind of like the super regimented, hard and fast rules versus the more gracious, more lackadaisical, not lackadaisical, but the little more relaxed, not lackadaisical, relaxed way of going about your health and your wellness quest. And so I'm still in a sort of a more like a limbo-ish kind of a phase right now, where all I'm doing is just trying to collect data. And two of the things that I've been taking every single morning, moments after I wake up, are my blood ketones and my blood glucose. I do have two separate monitors. I know that everybody that has a Keto Mojo touts it highly, or there's like that Keto Coach, and I think they changed names. But I find that it's really simple for me to have just my basic monitors, and I know I've shared those before, so I'm not gonna bore people with that detail anymore. But I've been extremely diligent at taking my numbers every single morning, and what's incredible is I'm kind of like a German train schedule when it comes to waking up in the morning. It doesn't matter how late we go to bed the night before, how early we go to bed the night before. I am able to get my blood ketone and glucose numbers taken by about 6:03 a.m. I think the latest I took it, no, I don't want to do that. I turned on my scratch pad on my numbers app here, but so I'm able to go through and take my numbers at approximately 6:03 a.m. every single day. And I started inputting them into a spreadsheet once the first day of my most recent cycle began, because I want to see what happens over the span of one entire hormonal cycle. So starting with my period and coming all the way back around. And taking my ketones and my glucose is good. That gives me my Dr. Boz ratios, so I can see, am I doing okay? Am I not doing okay? And what's fascinating is that I started taking more intentional time to record my numbers about a week and a half before I decided to start with this current cycle. Maybe it was 2 weeks, because there's a gap in some of my data. And I was not really writing down any notes. And collecting data, in my opinion, is great. But the only data that I was recording were my ketones and my glucose, and then calculating my Dr. Boz ratio. That, while the numbers are fact, there's no way to get around the math. That is solid. There's no opinion involved in that. What I was struggling with was the fact that I wasn't really sure of the context surrounding those numbers. So I realized that collecting data isn't just collecting the hard numbers from my monitors. The collecting of data really needs to encompass some notes. It needs to obviously encompass the time, the date. Oh, don't delete that row. Oh no, oh goodness, we're struggling. Here, let's actually eliminate that. Get rid of you. Sorry, guys. So going through, actually making notes every single morning about what I had done the night before allowed me to see a few things as far as why my numbers may have been affected or may not have been affected. There was a couple of nights where we had late night snacks, and I had like peanut butter, like homemade from like peanut flour, no sweetener, no nothing added. But still I had that pretty late at night. So taking a look at my numbers, oh, that explains why this was the way that it was. Or I had a stomach ache for some reason and I couldn't pinpoint why. So I made sure to write that down in my notes section for the night before. And there was one night where one of my daughters started puking at midnight. And so that really gets the adrenaline up and pumping. You're kind of like in that fight mode, because I'm not gonna fly in the fight or flight when my kid is sick. I'm gonna come and fight. So it's one of those things where the context kind of mattered. It was, we had my husband's brother and his family all over They were in town for a weekend trip, so we had them over for dinner. We ate a lot more. We had steaks later at night, and then they left late. So it was kind of one of those things where, okay, knowing that we had a higher protein dinner later on in the night than we normally would, that sort of impacted the next day's numbers. We had our pastor's family come over for dinner one night, and we decided to do pizza. It was back to school for them, and we were thinking, like, what can we do to be super easy that we know all the kids will eat, that they will be pleased with, that will just simplify the process. We ordered pizza. My husband and I chose to eat a Quest pizza. And so I knew that was going to be a problem for me. Not a problem. I knew it was going to have an impact in a way that I probably wouldn't be super excited about, but I didn't want to go through and try to manipulate the data. I wanted to get authentic numbers, because having people over or going over to other people's homes for our home group and having dinner, those things are part of our regular life. And I don't want to collect data that is super sterile, because my entire lifespan is not going to be lived in a super sterile bubble where I'm the only one in control of every minute detail. That's not reality for me, and I don't want to get to a place where I go to a friend's house and I can't even drink the water they provide, because I get so just so granular with every little thing that I have to be in control of it. So I there's just so many little bits of information that I can add to my collection of my numbers that can help provide that context. And that really helps me to make some different choices in the future based on how I feel the next day. And that's kind of where my brain was today. And there's a specific thing that happened to me this morning that I wanted to talk about very shortly, very briefly, but I saw that I have missed out a couple of the comments. And here we go. Okay, so I said hi to you, Sylvia. Rickwin 96. How do you say your your handle? Hello though. And you asked, do I feel like I'm dropping down the hole with Alice in Wonderland? I always feel like that. True story. Anytime I go to start to slowly absorb information about some topic that I've heard about for the first time, or that has been reintroduced to me, or I had forgotten about and then rediscovered, kind of a thing, I'm always falling down the hole. I don't know if my internet's going to have hissy fits. And then of course, hey Amy, love that you're here. You too, Briar Rose. Hi, Miss Judy. So I'm all caught up there. Okay, great. So we just recently did our Fab 4 video. What was it? What is today? Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's actually Wednesday. Okay. We did that end of last week, and Amy posted that over on her channel. And so after having talked with the Fab 4, I wound up with a really weird dream this morning. And so we went to bed a little bit earlier last night, which I found to be fantastic. I am definitely a morning person. I'm an early bird. I like to be up before the sun every single day. Like, that is who I am. That's how my body rhythm works. But that also means that come the end of the night, I'm real tired. So last night we got to bed at an earlier bedtime, which I found awesome. And then I found myself naturally waking up at about 5 this morning, and knowing the kind of impact sleep can have on our overall well-being, I knew I wanted to get some extra sleep. So I decided to not jump out of bed and kickstart my day at 5 a.m. So I fall back asleep. And in my dream, at some point, I was at Neely's house out in Oregon, and it was not actually her house. You know how in dreams, things are just kind of like a warped version of reality? Well, we were in some kind of a basement level but it had access to the outside in a courtyard area where you could park cars, which was interesting because it was fully enclosed. And all of a sudden, in come a lion and a grizzly, and they come in, the bear chasing the lion. Then somehow the lion disappears and the bear recognizes that there's these big giant glass windows and there are people inside and it wants to come investigate. And Neely's oldest daughter, Autumn, was coming in to one of these glass doors, kind of like the glass doors that I have here in this room. And she just barely got into the room before she could slam the door shut and lock it. And then there's this, massive grizzly. And I don't know how many of y'all have seen grizzlies. We used to live in Alaska and we never encountered a grizzly. We did encounter a black bear at one point, but he was actually on the Canadian border, so I'm not really sure. Anyway, so this grizzly is in my dreams, and it's that kind of between the sleep and wake cycles. And I woke up to my alarm clock at 6 and my heart was racing and I thought, oh, this is going to be so good for my information, like for me collecting data, like does flight or fight really matter in our sleep even? And at least anecdotally, this is not scientifically controlled by any stretch of the imagination. So I get up, come into the kitchen, take my blood glucose numbers, and I am not one to have low glucose in the morning, but I'm also not one to have high glucose in the morning. I had my first reading at 114 on my glucose. And I was like, what? I took it again because you know how Dr. Boz, she'll sometimes get a reading she doesn't like and she'll do a couple of more strips until she actually gets her number to where she wants it to be. Well, so I took it 2 more times and it was at 108 and it was at 105. And I kept the 105 because, but it was one of those situations where it was like, I was in flight or fight mode. And like I said, I'm a fighter, but this like 12-foot grizzly, because they're slightly larger in your dreams, was like, there was a thin sheet of glass between us. And so that gets the heart pumping. I felt like the desire like to get up and move this morning. It was not something I've experienced in quite some time. I don't usually have dreams like that. So checking my numbers, apparently for me in that exact circumstance with that specific chemistry, it caused my body to go into fight or flight and my glucose was ready to roll. So I found that super interesting. And just one of those things where that kind of just like detail would be totally lost if I wasn't practicing the art of putting a few notes in my spreadsheet every time that I come in here. My notes section is actually quite a bit larger because I've gotten more and more diligent at adding more and more specific type of notes in order to provide context for my number of 114 down to 105. But I would not have any context for that information, for that hard data to understand, could there be an anomaly? Why would my blood glucose be that high? And now I've taken the time to put a short little note in there, and I'll be able to look back over that for my whole cycle and say, okay, intense dreams might cause a spike in my glucose. So that is pretty much where I am for the day for Wellness Wednesday. And I missed a few more comments. All right. Briar Rose, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy or healthy, wealthy, and wise. Yes, but also early to rise, early to bed makes a man wealthy, but sociably dead. Unless you've got a lot of early riser friends. And then Briar Rose, in relation to finding a bear and a lion in my dream, get a gun, it's dinner. Arguably, yes. And bear bacon can be quite delicious. Neely showed up. Hello. And then Alan, you're here. Lunchtime walk and listening. Fantastic. So I have in the past collected tons and tons of numerical data, just like the hard numbers that are factual. There is no way to, like just accepting the data and not manipulating it. It's just numbers. But when you try to add that context piece, that really kind of struck a chord with my brain this week. So, I mean, I guess technically it's been a few weeks and a couple of weeks of actually keeping notes. Now, the data I had collected that I had been collecting from my 2 Wellness Wednesdays ago, I didn't add notes to it. So I didn't have a whole heap of context to deal with. If my youngest goes through and has nightmares and I have to get up in the middle of the night with her, or if we just have a late night, or if we have an early night, or if I have a high fat coffee in the evenings, or if I have a high fat coffee right after dinner, but nothing into the evening. Like there's so many different little variables. And ultimately, what my goal with collecting all of this data is, this in context data, is being able to say, how bad did I feel afterwards? How good did I feel afterwards? And am I willing to go either of those directions with this choice that I make? So it's really data collection for the purpose of making more judicious choices in the future so that I can still participate in life with our friends, our family, our community, and not feel like hot garbage. So there is that. Amy, your tiny human fell asleep. No, poor Bella. Finding something. Hopefully it's not the puking thing yours had. Yes, I do not understand why my middle, she's the one who puked throughout the night. Well, not throughout the night, but in the middle of the night, she gave back everything she had received for the 6 hours prior to her going to bed. And that was it. It was like a one and done situation. So I couldn't really tell you what happened there. I mean, for all I know, her stomach, got a Charlie horse and it just all came out. She didn't seem to be upset. She didn't seem to have any kind of other junk going on, and she could hold everything the next day. So it could very well have been a fluke, or who knows? Who knows? She could have been sick in her dream and felt like she had to puke or something. I don't know. I don't really have, I don't have any answers on that one. I wasn't very diligent with collecting data on her in the midst of all of the situation, just noting how it impacted me. My poor thing. She was definitely a little bit upset by all of that. So, all right. Is there anything y'all have done to keep your data collection in context? And like I said, I have been on the various roller coasters of the health and wellness quest, and collected data, not collected data. Been a fluke puke. Amy. That is absolutely what it is. It was a fluke puke. Oh my word. They had done roller coasters the week before. And so maybe it was a delayed puke for all we know. I don't know. But her sisters ate the exact same food as she did, and nobody else had a situation with the tummy guts. So Blaze is here. But yeah, that's how Wellness Wednesday is for me this week. I've noticed after having that Quest pizza, I feel a lot more water retention in a negative way, especially like in my upper, like right below where my chest is, like right in the low sternum, upper gut zone. Tons of water retention there after eating that Quest pizza. Those really are useful in a pinch, but definitely not my ideal way to eat. Normally, I'd rather make my own pizza flavored whatever, more like a casserole type thing to have alongside everybody else. But it was one of those deals where it was like, this moment is a moment for ease and simplicity. And we also had about 17 other things that we needed to do at that time. So simplicity won out. And that's the other thing. Saying that I want to have a perfect month is impossible. And being able to say, this is how this affected me in just like trying to collect and assimilate the data is a good thing, because that means that, you know, it could be 6 months down the line that something comes up where we need to eat another Quest pizza. Although, does anyone need to eat a Quest pizza? That's pretty arguable, right? But the situation may arise where that's my option to eat, and I don't want to be in a position where I have to completely tap out and say, well, I'm just going to fast this meal. I mean, I'm sure there's the possibility that I could, but the reality is I won't want to. All right. That is literally the long and the short of it. I don't know if y'all have any comments, anything to add to the data collection conversation, but yeah, Alan, sometimes you do what you have to do. And that's the reality of it. You know, there are like my husband, he's going to be traveling to a country where options are going to be beyond limited, and he's going to just have to participate in things that he can, and he's going to probably take on some things that he didn't want to just because it's part of the culture. And one of the things that we do when we travel to different cultures is we learn about them, and then we make sure we don't offend someone based on what we know about those cultures, because, you know, the goal is not to create friction. The goal is to better understand one another. So there's that. Amy, thank you for that. Hit the like button. I don't tend to do that good YouTuber thing saying hit the like button and share and all that jazz. I'm pretty garbage at that. So okay, that's where I think I'm going to leave y'all today. Thank you so much for being here. If you have not subscribed, I would love for you to poke around my channel, see if any of the content I put out is even like mildly amusing to you. And if it is, I would love for you to click the subscribe button. If you're returning viewer, thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see all y'all in my next video.